Hey everyone, welcome to the Fantasy Debate with Sam and Tate, brought to you by drroto.com. Get your daily prescription of fantasy sports. Tate, how are you? We've got another week that just won't cool down. Free agency is all fire all the time. It feels like every day we're getting a new notification that's causing me to second guess every dynasty move. How are you handling all this?
Samantha, apparently the National Football League has turned into a redraft format in fantasy leagues because have we ever had an offseason where this many marquee guys in their prime, or even some of which are entering their prime, have been on the move? This is nuts.
No, I really don't think that we've had a free agency like this. I feel like it's very unprecedented, but I was listening to another podcast, and I'm going to blank on the name because I'm terrible and it's towards the end of the week, so I've got no brain right now. But they were talking about how this season and before years past, like, we've got a lot of very young general managers that are in the league right now. So I could see a lot of young guns kind of going out there doing the no risk it, no biscuit mantra in terms of trying to keep the owners happy, but also trying to mix it up in order to find the right formula to get yourself to a championship. We saw the Bengals get to the Super Bowl last year with a terrible offensive line, but got there because, they had an amazing rookie in Joe Burrow, and he was able to reset the history books there in Cincinnati. And you looked at the Rams making moves, making big trades to get Stafford, and then getting to the Super Bowl with that. So I think a lot of teams are looking at these moves thinking, you know what, if I'm 3 moves away, let's spend the money and let's get ourselves a championship.
Well, I just watched Aladdin not that long ago. I'm talking about the OG version back from 1993. You got a friend in me. Anyway, what I was already kind of thinking, though, is that this is a whole new world, a whole new NFL, so to say, because we used to see for a while that teams would hold on to those first round picks like they were, automatically coveted future superstars in the National Football League. Now we see 2 years in a row, right? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they didn't give up any draft capital to get Tom Brady, but what they did is they landed the big free agent, the big fish, and then everybody wanted to come play there. And the GM, Jason Light, there in Tampa Bay, went ahead and went all in along with his veteran quarterback, decided to push his chips to the center. They won a Super Bowl, right? Then we kind of see a copycat move by Sean McVay in this NFL offseason. We see that McVay thought he was just a quarterback away from really having a chance to legitimately take home the Lombardi Trophy. So what do? They swap quarterbacks, both former number 1 overall picks, and they actually gave the Detroit Lions extra draft capital for multiple first rounders to bring back an older veteran quarterback that clearly was an upgrade from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford, and it paid off. And you saw the rest of their moves kind of correlate with that entire organization going all in. And now you see other teams that now they feel like they're one player away, Sam.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing all these like drastic moves. And it's, obviously Russell Wilson comes to mind going to the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
But Sam, who actually was a notable free agent to start free agency? Most of these have been blockbuster trade deals.
Yeah, a lot of them have. And I think right before free agency started, I went down the list of players that were available. Obviously, Adams was on that list. But someone like Tyreek, but he was franchise tagged. So there was like an asterisk next to his name. So I assumed that he was staying. And that was like a sneaky, just kidding, he's not staying kind of moment for everyone, I think, in that he was on the move. Let's stick with talking about quarterbacks really quickly, because I like that you bring up the, missing piece in Stafford for the Rams, bringing this veteran presence, obviously with a big arm, and we know what he's capable of, and Super Bowl champions. Congratulations to them. Another team, probably not as big of a trade as some of the ones that we're going to talk about, but speaking about a veteran that's been with the team a long time, Matt Ryan to the Colts is a very interesting move. In some respects, I feel like it's a bit of a lateral move because I don't know that it's that much of an upgrade. But are the Colts looking at this in a similar scenario that they're maybe only a couple parts away? And if they can get a quarterback that can, be consistent in throwing volume, which we know Ryan does, is that going to help open things up, take the pressure off of Jonathan Taylor so that they can make it a little bit further into the playoffs?
Well, I just think you're going to know what you can expect on a week-to-week basis a little bit more consistently than what you got with Carson Wentz. And,
Yeah.
The year before that, Phillip Rivers played just fine,
Yeah,
but
didn't they make the playoffs and they got beaten in the first round?
Well, do you feel like that this is a similar move to what they did with Phillip Rivers?
Yes.
I mean, Matt Ryan actually got his team to a Super Bowl, won an NFL MVP, so you can make an argument that he reached peaks that Phillip Rivers was never able to get to. But the point, I think it's kind of similar, right? Kind of a guy that's been fringe, top 10, flirted with top 5, one peak season where he was like exceptionally good, but very consistent throughout his entire career. So you expect that, you're going to have something that you can expect on a week-to-week basis if you're Frank Reich and the rest of the Indianapolis Colts to complement what is arguably the best running back in the National Football League in Jonathan Taylor. And I think some very nice defensive pieces led by Darius Leonard. But I certainly think they're right there with the Tennessee Titans to take a very winnable AFC South. So I really like the move fantasy-wise. I still think it leaves Matt Ryan somewhere around maybe the quarterback 15. I think he's a nice, reliable QB2 in Superflex leagues, and he's probably somebody you can stream in one QB leagues.
Does his addition move up or down for you, Michael Pittman?
I think it stays the same. To be honest with you, I don't think it really moves the needle significantly for Michael Pittman.
Yeah. I mean, wait and see. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised, and watch Pittman's value actually jump several spots up his ADP once the season gets going. But for me, as of right now, I'm in agreement. I don't think that he moves up or down my board too much with Matt Ryan under center as opposed to Carson Wentz. And
I would be very intrigued if the Colts go and make a play for Julio Jones. I think it makes sense, right? Get Matt Ryan. They have familiarity with one another. I think that the Colts are screaming for a second wide receiver option to complement Michael Pittman. So I think that would make a lot of sense. I do think that they're going to either add someone via free agency, some sort of veteran presence, or we may see them go after someone in the NFL draft.
I'm sure that there's going to be a draft edition, but I think you could also pair that with someone like Julio, which I think is a good pick, because you're also going to be able to get him at a good price, because obviously he played a lot of last season, very injured, and the Titans did just pick up Robert Woods, our favorite guy, Robert Woods. Bobby Trees, so he's got a new home too. But let's talk more about receivers a bit later. I do want to keep going down this quarterback list. Desean Watson to the Browns, a team that did not seem like it was on the fringe or even in the conversation when this talks about the trades first started. And then it was this back and forth between Baker and the Browns in social media, and Baker coming out and saying basically a lovely goodbye letter to the fans, and then requesting a trade, and the Browns denying him that trade. And then what felt like a half second later, the notification came through that the Browns signed Desean Watson.
To what, the largest amount of guaranteed money in NFL history?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So big slap in the face to Baker all last week. Where do you see Baker landing? Because obviously, unless the Browns just want to absolutely pull one over on him and keep him cozy on the bench all season long, can't imagine them doing it. And especially with so many other teams that are probably still quarterback hungry, talking about the Falcons, as they just lost Matt Ryan, another team that could definitely use a quarterback. Do you see him going anywhere like the Falcons? Is there anywhere else that you like to see him?
I think the best place for him, if you're a dynasty shareholder, right, of Baker Mayfield, and the man just lost his starting position, I would think the best place for his fantasy landing spot would be the Seattle Seahawks. I think he's a better quarterback than Drew Lock. And that's not – I'm not a big Drew Lock truther by any means, but I think if you were to have an open competition between the two, I would imagine that Baker Mayfield would probably be able to win that competition. But it doesn't seem like the Seahawks are interested in trading for Baker Mayfield. So I honestly, Sam, I think it's something where he's just going to a former number 1 overall pick who brought the team their first playoff win in the franchise's like 20-year history, like, or at least the recent history anyway, is going to be available like on the open market, just like that.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, though, doesn't it feel like there's just something off with Baker Mayfield? Like, I don't know. You're obviously you watch a lot more Browns football, given that they're in your division, and I do keep my eye on the Browns and everything of that nature. But I don't know. There's something that felt amiss because on paper, Desean Watson, by the way, he's probably still going to. I imagine the NFL should probably still suspend him. I mean, I'm not making these decisions, but I imagine he's probably still going to be facing some sort of league discipline from whatever their investigations find into the whole situation. We don't have to go into that, but with Desean Watson now, and I do think he's an upgrade on the football field, sheerly on the football field compared to what Baker Mayfield gives them. What didn't the Browns have on the offensive side that Baker couldn't have had success as a guy that was highly touted coming out of college? Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that they missed the playoffs last year. I know Baker was playing through an injury, but that team never reached its max potential. And you got to think that a lot of it has to do with maybe just the immaturity. And it also seemed kind of weird, Sam, that he kind of had like a social media. He went straight to social media as soon as he found out his team was interested in Desean Watson and demanded a trade. Like, I'm not going to say I'm going to call him mentally weak. He's somebody that plays the game and probably accomplished what he's accomplished in the sport by playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he had his feelings probably hurt and devastated that, a team in a city that he's given so much to is like automatically courting somebody else publicly. But
Yeah.
it just feels like there's a maturity level with Baker Mayfield that I'm not going to say is like apples to apples with Jameis Winston, but there's talent there, but there's something missing as far as like the consistency and maturity that I think NFL teams are a little scared to invest in.
Yeah, I hear that. Also, can't forget that he was dealing with multiple injuries all last season long and was still playing through all of them. So, that
Right.
on its own. And obviously I know that, it wasn't just the injuries this past year, but there have been moments where it seems like he's choked or missed a beat at a game that took them out of contention. So I get that as well. I think that for Baker, I do feel like there is still talent there once he gets healthy and back again. We've seen a lot of other quarterbacks come back from what felt like the dead. Ryan Tannehill was someone that, did not make a roster, even if you had 2 QB leagues where he was at previously. And then he ended up with the Titans and found a lot of success with them. I think maybe a new system, completely new start could be really good for Baker. I just hope it's the right team that gets him. Other teams that I know are still, looking for a quarterback. The Carolina Panthers are still looking because they're not convinced by Sam Darnold and Cam Newton and that combination. So I can imagine that they could have interest. I like Seahawks going with him as well. I'm going to throw the New York Giants out there because do we really think that Danny Dimes has it? I don't even want to call him Danny Dimes.
Well, look, I don't think that you're wrong by bringing up the teams that you just brought up. The New York Giants did sign Tyrod Taylor. So I'm assuming he's coming in there to automatically kind of be a veteran presence and also to probably push Daniel Jones. I'm not calling him Danny Dimes. He's Danny Pennies until he proves otherwise. And then you're talking about the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, they were openly in the sweepstakes and pitching for Desean Watson. They lost, yet it seems like the Panthers went out and said that they're not interested in Baker Mayfield. And then Baker Mayfield's side, I believe it's been reported that they came out and said there's mutual disinterest between Carolina and Baker Mayfield and his camp and representation. So again, it just seems like Baker's rubbing people the wrong way. And I don't know. It's something feels a little off. I get that he was injured. I get that he was trying to play through injuries. And I'm not blaming everything on him as far as their disappointment last season. But I mean, the man had a chance with Patrick Mahomes knocked out of the game in an AFC playoff game. He was going up against Chad Henne and couldn't get the job done. Couldn't knock off the Chiefs, even when the baddest man on the planet, or one of the baddest men on the planet, wasn't in the game. It does feel like there was a host of missed opportunities and what if type of moments left on the table with Baker Mayfield under center in Cleveland.
Is Baker someone then that as we start the season stays without a team? And as every season goes, there is always injuries in every season. You don't want to predict it. You don't want to wish for them, but they happen. Could there be a scenario where a team loses their starting quarterback and they have to pick up the phone and make that phone call to Baker Mayfield?
Could. That's one scenario that could play out. I think another likely possible scenario that could is he takes the Jameis Winston, Mitchell Trubisky route where he basically sits the bench for a season, behind, a starting quarterback, Jameis with Drew Brees and Mitchell Trubisky with Josh Allen, and waits and bides his time until, he re-hits the market. That's also a possibility.
Definitely a possibility. All right, let's move on from that and talk about really quickly. I want to talk about Marcus Mariota signing with the Falcons. Is this new life for Mariota, or is this Band-Aid until the Falcons can draft a rookie quarterback and put all their hopes in them?
I sure as hell think that this is a Band-Aid. No offense to Marcus Mariota, but yeah, I mean, I think that there's some probably system familiarity, there in Atlanta, and I don't know. It's not a good feeling for Marcus Mariota, even though he's for him it is actually, but I'm just not even sure that he's going to finish the year as the starter, to be 100% honest with you. I think that they lost out on Desean Watson. They don't want to take on Baker Mayfield's contract, or maybe they're not a believer in Baker. They don't want to trade for Baker. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, Marcus Mariota, who's he even throwing to this year, Sam?
Kyle Pitts.
I mean, that's nice. Yes.
Yeah, they have a lot of holes they need to fill. A lot.
They need to sign an entire wide receiver group. Like, they don't need just one. They need to sign like a 1, a 2, and a 3.
They did re-sign Cordero Patterson, so they got one, and they got Kyle Pitts, but there's a lot of missing pieces to this puzzle for anyone to get excited, let alone, let's say they draft Kenny Pickett or a top rookie talent, and for anyone to get excited about them immediately being the number one. Who are they throwing to? So there's a lot of different questions that need to be answered, and a lot of other signings that I'm sure that are going to happen in the next week as well.
Patterson actually plays running back, I think, now. No, I'm kidding. Of course he does. That's actually a very fair question. Before we move off the Falcons, is Cordero Patterson still a top 10 PPR running back heading into next year for you?
I think that with all the moves across the board, he's going to end up falling maybe outside of the top 10, just based on a lot of these quarterback moves. There's been so many free agency moves that I see a lot of people's even rookie mock drafts have absolutely been shattered because picks are going everywhere, players are going everywhere. As every move happens, certain needs are being met with those trades. So it's all just up in the air for me. I can't imagine. It's hard for me to say just a hard no that he's already like out of the top 10, but I won't be surprised when I do my rankings and I find him outside of it.
There's no shot in hell I'm taking him in the second round. No way. I get that he had a great year, a career year. Good for him. Got a payday, multi-year deal. Cool. 2-year deal. Awesome. Good for Cordero Patterson.
Good for him.
That being said, I do not trust this Atlanta offense led by Marcus Mariota. I'm sorry. Until I'll be wrong on this, and I'll live to accept that I'm wrong if this Atlanta offense ends up being, a top 15 unit scoring wise.
Yeah, can't wait to be surprised by it. But let's move on. I think the last one I want to talk about before we move on to the big wide receiver news is obviously Jameis Winston re-signing with the Saints. So another team that probably won't be making the bid for Baker. I mean, I'm happy for Winston. I feel like we're both excited to see him play a full season after the LASIK surgery. Now we got to see him after the injury that he suffered last season. So hopefully he stays healthy and he can have a good year. And the other question mark is, will we be seeing him with Michael Thomas?
Well, are we going to see him with Michael Thomas? Are we going to see him with Alvin Kamara? How's this offense going to look without Sean Payton? There's a lot of unknown.
So another team full of question marks, pretty much. The Saints are in a similar boat to the Falcons in that we don't really know what we're going to get. It's not even a box of chocolates. It's a box. We don't know what's inside.
Is it a box?
It might be a box. It might be a paper bag. I'm not sure. Just a crinkly paper bag at this point.
Yeah, right. I'm definitely one. There's a lot that has to shake out, and I'm interested to see what direction the Saints' rest of their offseason and the NFL draft goes. But for Jameis Winston, it definitely is shaping up that he's probably going to have the inside track to being the starter, given that his knee is fully rehabbed and ready to go for the start of the year.
Yeah. All right. Now the big fun news that I know came across our boards and we were all shocked by: Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. Holy cow. Like, what? I did not expect this move at all. Did you?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks for a wide receiver.
Woo! For arguably one of the best wide receivers and first ballot Hall of Famer wide receiver. Tyree Kill is an insane beast at the position. I mean, is he not?
I don't think so. I mean, if Terrell Owens was not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then Tyreek Hill is not a first ballot Hall of Famer yet. I'll say yet.
Fighting words. I'm just saying. All right, but let's look at the Miami Dolphins roster real quick. Now that they've just added Tyreek Hill, Tua has Tyreek Hill. He has Jalen Waddle. He has Chase Edmonds. He has Mike Gesicki. Maybe Devonta Parker if he is or is not on the move. This is a much better overall balanced offensive core that we're seeing for Tua. Like, if Tua doesn't have a fantastic year this year, it's got to be him, right?
Well, I don't know. When you take a look from the outside looking in, they just signed Terran Armstead as well. Probably the prized left tackle on the open market this season, right? This free agent year. Yep. So certainly they've invested enough just before the NFL draft to go ahead and say, look, Tua, it's put up or shut up time. Like, we passed on Justin Herbert to take you, and I think they already regret that. They were in the Desean Watson conversation last season before this was all cleared up and went to court. So, but yes, Tua certainly is on Tua. I believe that if it goes to hell in a handbasket this season for the Miami Dolphins, I personally believe that this becomes the 2023 version of this offseason for the Denver Broncos or the Cleveland Browns, to where this is where a quarterback will want to go if they're disgruntled and they're like looking around like, where would I kick some ass if I were to go and play with those wide receivers and those weapons and that offensive mind and Mike McDaniel. So we really don't know what Mike McDaniel has to bring to the table yet, but generally those Shanahan tree wide receivers, modern West Coast, they seem to do pretty damn well. I mean, got a pretty good track record with McVay, Kyle Shanahan, LaFleur there in Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, Tua has pretty much no excuse. And, you got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who instantly become, to me, off the top of my head, two of the most explosive, open field, deep threat talents on the same roster in NFL history. These guys are track stars.
No, I do think that they actually are in the books for being the fastest duo currently in the league. Between the two of them, they are the fastest. They are speed. Like, of Marvel characters, they are the fast guys there. So it's pretty damn impressive.
I'm going, Marvel doesn't have speedsters like DC's The Flash, and I'm taking the Flash from one multiverse and the Flash from another one when they run into each other, or Barry Allen and Wally West, if I'm going full dork here. Yeah, we're talking, that's Jalen Waddle and Tyree Kill. That's exactly what Tua Tagovailoa has on the outside, and not to mention a pretty good tight end in Mike Gesicki. I personally, I don't understand why they're in such a rush to get rid of Devontae Parker, because I think he's actually a great possession option to the speedy yards after catch dynamos that both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are. But I'm going to ask you, because we got to know, for you Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle dynasty shareholders, does this really help their value?
I don't know that it does. I mean, obviously, I feel like, Tyreek Hill is an immediate number one. You paid him. He is your number one wide receiver. Whereas with him not there, Waddle is just gobbling up all the targets, getting all the volume, getting all the attention. Now that's going to be split between him and Hill. So you've got a 1-2 situation where they're each capping each other's value. Now, obviously, Hill still maintained his value despite the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City being Travis Kelce. And I'm going to call him the wide receiver 2 because he was the wide receiver 2 in that situation. So he was still successful there, but that was with Patrick Mahomes throwing in the ball and peppering it all over the field. I haven't seen Tua have that kind of output that Mahomes did.
So interesting that you bring up. No. I'm raising my hand like, in a Zoom meeting. I guess you can like kind of push the button where it says, Derek Tate has a question or raised his hand. So sorry for you folks that are just listening via audio. Point being, I have a point or a question to ask you. I'll say it's a point because you mentioned Travis Kelce being the running mate of Tyreek Hill there in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, throwing seeds all over the football field.
Yeah.
They complemented each other perfectly.
They did.
Like Kelce worked the middle of the field and was a matchup nightmare against linebackers, safeties, but he took care of so much of the dirty work in the middle of the football field, intermediate routes. He could do it all. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends that's ever played the game, arguably the best ever. But Tyreek Hill, was just such a perfect speed-demon complement that opened things up for Travis Kelce, and it was a pick your poison with Patrick Mahomes pulling the trigger. You flip the coin, though. I mean, like, you're removing so many of those explosive plays for Tyreek Hill. I know he's great after the catch. I mean, he's constantly among the top 10 at yards after reception year after year after year because you can get him the ball anywhere, and he's a threat to score, whether it's a slip screen, bubble screen, a quick slant, whatever, or he can torch you deep. But when you look at him going now to play with Tua Tagovailoa, you just look at the difference between Mahomes and Tua and their aggressiveness pushing the football down the field. I mean, yards per attempt, and I'm not. There's some noise in these numbers, but Mahomes was 6th last year, 7.6 yards per attempt. Tua was 25th, 6.8. You look at the year before that, Mahomes was 5th. Tua was 32nd. Passes thrown 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. Mahomes was 7th in 2021, and Mahomes was 5th in 2020. Tua, 30th last season with Jalen Waddle on the team, and then 29th. And you mentioned Travis Kelce being that running mate with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have pretty damn similar skill sets. It's like that Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. Like,
yes, even their size is like, I think I'm just looking at their stats now, exact same height difference in weight of about 3 pounds. Like they are very, very close. I mean, had this been a scenario where you've got a very big difference in size, then I would say, okay, there's clear roles here that each of them will play. Yes, but that is not the case here. You've got two super similar guys. And I agree with you. I think that they're going to eat into each other's value. And I think that this hurts a lot of Tyreek Hill dynasty owners.
So Waddle saw 140 targets last year. Where do you think he gets this year?
He'll be lucky to get 70.
Well, I don't know about that. That's real. That's
Too far?
really light.
I went too far.
I would say it jumps more around like the 100, 110 range. I mean,
So then
that's
how
where
many are
personally
Tyreek Hill gonna get?
probably right around there. I mean, probably maybe a little bit more. I mean,
So you see
you know, I'd
Tua's
probably
output
I'd say Tyreek Hill's
double?
probably the better. Tyreek Hill to me is still the better player at this very moment. But again, Sam, when we're talking about what makes Tyreek Hill special, it's not that I'm not just saying he's just a pure burner. I mean, he does so much more than that. And I think he's stronger than people give him credit for. He breaks more tackles after, through contact for a guy his size than you would expect. But, he is at the end of the day, his weapon is the revolutionary speed that we've never seen on a football field before, right?
It's the
He is
revolutionary speed
28 years old.
and also how he competes with contested catches and his ability to make a catch out of nothing. I mean, you see him with double, triple teams all the time and still get the ball. So I do think that does set him apart. I'm just very concerned that I just don't feel like Tua can put up the numbers that we need to make them both what we all want them both to be.
What you're going to miss with Tua for Tyreek Hill shareholders, Tua's not going to have those consistent explosive plays down the field that, like, when you do have to pay the proper amount of attention to Jalen Waddle or Mike Gesicki, and you get those valuable one-on-ones with Tyreek Hill on the outside, or God forbid they're running some sort of, zone over the top and Tyree Kill, and you get enough protection for Tua to be able to let it go down the field. He doesn't have the Mahomes type of cannon to really maximize Tyree Kill's immense value with his speed. And that's just, if Patrick Mahomes and Tyree Kill went together like spaghetti and meatball, Tua and Tyreek Hill to go together like lamb and tuna fish. It's not the right match, in particular with Waddle taking up similar targets. I do think that there's a little bit of intrigue when it comes to Mike McDaniel potentially using Tyreek Hill, similar to that of Deebo Samuel back in his San Francisco days. But the problem is that you can make the same argument for Jalen freaking Waddle. Like, you're going to get Waddle the ball in his hands, like in those type of jet sweeps and stuff like that. So it's just those two are going to limit each other. It sucks because they both go down in value to me.
I do think they both go down in value. I think we need to pivot from Tyreek Hill for a moment. I think we need to talk about the move of Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins is equal to or lesser than Devonta Adams to the Raiders. These are two, in the conversations of ADP, wide receiver, we always go back and forth between these two guys and who's the number one. And it's been kind of undisputed that it's Adams at the number one with Rodgers, but that is not the case now. He is with Derek Carr. I'm getting a notification that my computer is going to die because I didn't plug it in, so I have to go grab it.
Okay, I will go ahead and rant here for about.
If you want to talk about between the two, I will be right back.
I can do that. So while Sam grabs her charger, you are listening to the Fantasy Debate with Sam and Tate here on drroto.com. So when you're talking about Devonta Adams and Tyreek Hill in particular, I've always thought that it wasn't much of a debate. Obviously, if you had in a league where you were getting extra points, bonus points for big play touchdowns, then Tyreek Hill, that closed the gap a little bit, but always the target share and the red zone dominance was something that I thought clearly favored Devonta Adams. And for me, it never made it much of a decision between Adams and Tyreek Hill. And I still think it's not much of a decision between Adams and Tyreek Hill. You could definitely make the argument between Mahomes and Rodgers that I thought it was kind of a stalemate because they both had exceptional quarterback play. But now I believe that Derek Carr is by far the more reliable quarterback that I feel is going to, have pretty much instant rapport, like riding a bicycle, like a shared bicycle, I guess, back at their Fresno State days. So I think they're going to be fine. They'll hit the ground running as much as you can for, two guys that haven't played together in their professional careers. But Adams is going to certainly get a healthy volume. I know that Waller and Renfro will certainly say their targets, but so will the likes of Waddle and Gesicki. And I just trust Derek Carr more than I do Tua Tagovailoa as far as to exert the most maximum value for Devonta Adams in this scenario in the heads-up matchup.
So I agree with you in that I feel like Adams still maintains a higher value than Hill after this move, but I think it's a question mark now as to whether or not he is the definitive number one at the position when you look at overall wide receiver rankings across the board. I think it does bring him down a peg or two. And I'm thinking mostly about Cooper Kupp, who just had the triple crown of wide receiver seasons last year with the Rams on the way to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Obviously, the Rams did just sign Allen Robinson, but Kupp was helped by having OBJ there in the back, and it really didn't dent his overall output by comparison. So I think that these two moves kind of clear the path for the clear and obvious Cooper Kupp is your number one wide receiver next year.
I mean, I never had it up for debate, but no, I agree. Well, I mean, you could still make a case for Devonta Adams. You can make a case for Devonta Adams if he was still playing with Aaron Rodgers. That
you could, but you can't make that argument now.
No, I think that it's easily Cooper Kupp, and then really it's up for that number 2 spot is up for grabs. Like, is it Devonta Adams? Is it Justin Jefferson? Is it Jamar Chase? Is it, certainly there's a lot more guys in that conversation now because of the new locations for Tyree Kill and Devonta Adams. So it's very interesting. Tyree Kill is not my top 5 though.
No, he's not in my either. I think Adams stays in my top 5, and I think that Hill drops out of my top 5. Whether or not he stays in top 10 is still a question for me. I feel like that's probably a little bit too early to say because obviously we don't know how they're all going to play nicely together. But I do feel like this hurts his overall value in terms of if you were doing redraft right now. If you're starting a dynasty league right now, it hurts his value as well. Between the two, I'd still rather have Adams because, yes, he does have that rapport with Derek Carr from their college days. And I think that the Raiders are trying to get that lightning in the bottle that the Bengals got with Burrow and Chase having their counterparts together on that team. Power team made a Super Bowl with this same formula. So, and arguably, Adams has the immense veteran presence that he does and that he's been there with Rodgers before, and he knows exactly what he's doing and won't choke or have any kind of yips or question marks in the preseason whether or not he can catch a ball. He doesn't have to worry about that. He's Adams. We know what he can do. So I think he stays in the top 5. I think Hill drops out. And I think that Cooper Kupp is, now the new pinnacle of the tier. And then those other spots are definitely up for grabs. This is a year where our rankings are going to take a big shift and a big tumble due to all of these crazy free agency moves. I feel like there are some times where this happens in fantasy where 2 to 3 years in a row, it's kind of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 at certain positions for certain players. This is a year where it's going to have that earthquake shift of this didn't look like how it did last year. And it's going to be a big shift for everyone.
It's a seismic shift. And we're going to – it's interesting to see, where, post-hype guys land. I mean, it's just going to be I personally, this is why I love fantasy football because you have so much fluidity and change and analysis that goes into it and projecting. And, this is what we do. And, the only guy that it feels like in the top 3 at the wide receiver position or top 5 that isn't having a serious shakeup, it does feel like Cooper Kupp. It makes that, if you're the first guy to take a wide receiver, I think your decision's easy. After that, I'm still going running back early because those other wide receivers, you can make a case for guys like 2 through 7 that any of them could be number 2.
I definitely agree with that. Let's shift and talk about the Kansas City Chiefs that are now without Tyreek Hill and having to find a solution there. They signed Marquez Scantling. They signed Juju Smith-Schuster. I love him. But besides those two, I don't want to ask which of them becomes the wide receiver 1 because I think they both do well in the wide receiver 2 position. Does this just boost Travis Kelce to definitive number one tight end? Because to me, looking at how the splits were in years past, he is now their number one wide receiver.
Well, I definitely think that he's the most valuable pass catcher. And if you're talking about redraft formats, I still think that Travis Kelce is the safest tight end that you can invest in early in
100%.
draft.
Like, definitely not even a year where I would question taking Travis Kelce as the number one tight end off the board, especially after losing his biggest target share.
Mark Andrews had a great year, though. I mean,
he did. I'm just saying there's a vacancy of targets for Hill that are very easy in terms of creating a rapport with someone you already know. And Travis Kelce, just dumping a couple more targets on someone you're comfortable with is going to be very easy for Mahomes to do while he decides which of Schuster and MVS he prefers throwing to.
The only thing that makes me a little concerned about the whole target share just adjusting or Kelce getting a bigger chunk. Tyreek Hill did a lot as far as opening things up for Kelce to work underneath, and he's not there anymore. So, I mean, Juju, God forbid, he's a great complementary wide receiver. He's not the focal point of a passing attack in the National Football League. I don't like saying that, but I thought that he was going to be a great third option to Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Now he kind of is probably the number one wide receiver, and then MVS is a nice, guy that can take the top off of a defense. But if the Packers thought he was that great, why'd they let him go after Devonta Adams just got traded? Anyway. Kelce's still the guy that I'm taking first off the board, even though Andrews had a great year. And Kelce's a year older, but as long as he's still showing that he can put up the numbers that he put up last year, I'm still taking Travis Kelce until the wheels fall off. I think, though, here's a question, and I don't want to spend too much longer on the Chiefs, but with Tyree Kill now out of town, in a dynasty format, super flex or just one quarterback or whatever, is Patrick Mahomes still the number one quarterback off the board for you?
Ooh, he's not for me this year. I mean, we saw that he was mortal this past season. We saw a lot of problems come up that hindered him all year. And it just in terms of consistency, he wasn't his normal self this past season compared to the year before. There were weak games that were confusing. That seemed like he was being a bit cavalier with his no-look passes that would be interceptions. He just missed a couple beats. So for me, I would much rather have someone a la Josh Allen, number one off the board. Give me them running yards. Give me all of that speed that he has and all the extra air yards that you get. I just love that, that passing group that he has. I feel like I would rather have that, knowing what it is and knowing that the Bills are absolutely not going to stop in terms of having their foot on the gas to get back to the playoffs next year. I would rather have Josh Allen than Mahomes. Losing Hill just adds one more reason why, for me, I would rather have Allen off the board first.
So you make an interesting point about Josh Allen's rushing capabilities as far as like a reason why you would go over Patrick Mahomes. And we're talking about dynasty, right? I mean, that's where I was kind of prefacing that. But Allen, his development as a passer has been remarkable, far more than I expected him entering the NFL. I thought he was always going to be kind of like a version of Cam Newton at best case scenario. I think he's miles ahead of what Cam ever was as a pure passer. I think the past 2 seasons have kind of proven that. Like, he not only did he do it, like Cam did it for 1 year at an MVP level and then was never really
the same,
reached those heights again. Like Josh Allen's done it 2 years in a row. Mahomes, though, I mean, he had a moment and kind of a stretch where he struggled, kind of like because the NFL is a copycat league, right? The Bucs kind of threw something at him in the Super Bowl that had some level of success, and he saw a lot of 2 deep safety looks to start the year, and it kind of frustrated him because he was, I think, pressing and trying to make superhero type throws on too often of a basis. When he started settled down and kind of picked defenses apart, he looked more like the Patrick Mahomes that we're used to, and he finishes the quarterback for a second straight season. And, I still think that Mahomes is going to be great, but I do wonder what the production is going to look like and what the offense in general is going to look like without that speed, the fastest guy on the field, without the fastest guy in the league to threaten and open everything up for everybody else. Does that affect the Chiefs and how this offense operates on a consistent basis? I still think you're going to have those big Mahomes games where he blows up and throws for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. But are there those games where they struggled a little bit more? Are they going to be a little bit more consistent for Mahomes and the rest of this offense while they figure out life post Tyreek Hill?
I think it's going to change a lot, and it's going to change the way, obviously, that defenses go after the Chiefs. I mean, they had to be concerned at all levels of the field because of Tyreek Hill, because as you covered up front too quickly, you just left all kinds of space for Hill to dominate. So you had to spread yourself thin on defense in order to cover every single weapon. Teams aren't going to have to do that with the level of speed you're getting from the current pass catchers. They're just not going to have to do that. So someone else is going to have to step up. And I just wonder, in this core of offensive players, who is going to be the one to step up that's going to break out? And I think that's the main question mark here.
Are we going to see Mahomes get blitzed more? Our team's going to be a little bit braver when it comes to trying to challenge him now because they're not worried about getting torched by Tyreek in one-on-one coverage. Yeah. So we'll see. But I actually agree with you. Josh Allen is my QB1 in Dynasty, and I can't believe I'm saying that. And it's really damn close between Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow for me. And some other folks may have Kyler Murray up there. That's totally fine. Lamar Jackson too. Like the league is loaded with young stud quarterbacks. But I'm just saying my personal guys are. I mean, I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. Justin Herbert's been great, and but yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray's up there. I just hate his contract situation. That's the only thing that's making me. Otherwise, I'd have Kyler at 3.
Yeah, it's
contract weirded me out.
Yeah, I think. One for me, easy goes to Josh Allen, and everything else is kind of, you can make an argument back and forth. I feel like when I finish my rankings, I feel like Joe Burrow is going to be sitting there at number 2, and I'm not going to feel bad about it, even with that right behind me. It's going to, it's going to sting a little bit, but also, you hate the player, you hate the game. I just love the game. Like, I just give me more good, amazing fantasy football. Give me more rookies. Give me more amazing stuff to eat into. What other free agents do you want to quickly cover before we wrap up for today?
Leonard Fournette going back to the Buccaneers. We have to wait to see how the draft plays out. But as how their roster is currently, I still think that Leonard Fournette's a top 10 PPR running back this year. In particular with, I think Ronald Jones is coming back. So, Leonard Fournette, that's definitely notable. Other notable situations, Amari Cooper now paired with Desean Watson. He's probably going to see a very healthy target share. Cooper kind of flirts with that 15 to 20 wide receiver range for me. So his move to Dallas isn't move from Dallas to Cleveland isn't as bad as I originally thought when I thought Baker was going to be quarterback there. So we just don't know how long Desean Watson's going to be potentially disciplined by the league. But and then is there anybody else I'm kind of forgetting? I know we covered a lot today.
No, I think that's pretty much all I have time in my head for. I mean, we've got so much other stuff that we're going to be leading into as we get closer and closer to the draft, more free agency to talk about. So please tune in next week for all of that fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much going to cover it for today. Unless, like last week, the Desean Watson news came in on a Friday. I think that means that every time we do an episode, Tate, you and I just have to be on top of our notifications on Friday morning to make sure to see what we missed.
Right. No, I'm with you there. So, I'm going to have to check the interwebs. Like, isn't that what I'm supposed to be doing anyway? I mean, you're better on Twitter than I am, and it's not even close. Thanks for making me look bad.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Fantasy Debate with Sam and Tate. Check out all the other content, seasonal and DFS tools, as well as premium access to our staff for all your fantasy sports questions in the members-only Discord right here at drrow.com. Have a wonderful weekend. Tate, I'll let you take us out.
I mean, this one's pretty simple. Till next time, everybody. Later, says the Tater.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well.